Part 3, page 225. Okay, the first part of the book, remember I've been telling you it's the exposition setting up everything that is necessary that you need to know. Part 2 was, we don't need to deal with that. Now we get to see Winston and get to experience life and see him with Julia, see him with O'Brien, and really get the plot moving and get the suspense going. And oh my gosh, a book. There is a brotherhood. There is Goldstein. Oh my gosh, O'Brien's talking to me. I'm in his house. Oh my gosh. I'm reading the book. And then whew, the rug is pulled out from underneath him. And he gets transported to the Ministry of Love. So we're going to find out what happens in the Ministry of Love. I'd make notes on the setting, what this is like. Okay, he's in place. Everything's white. There are no clocks. He is amongst other people. Over time, and as we go through this part, time has ceased to exist. It's kind of like in the movies. If you see somebody thrown into solitary confinement, you know, and it's dark the whole time, they don't know what time it is, what day it is. They just know based on food showing up. Okay? You lose all sense of that. As he goes through here, and you see at the end of chapter 1 how he's getting beaten, beatings will become more regular. And through the beatings and the unconsciousness and the healing and then the beatings and interrogations, you lose all sense of time. Okay? It's like if you were stranded on an island for tens of years, you would probably ultimately, unless you were really good like Tom Hanks in Castaway and keeping track of everything, you would lose focus and you wouldn't know if it's Sunday or if it's Tuesday. What does it matter to you? If you're alone on an island, really, what does it matter? Okay? And over time here, there is no clocks. They tell you what you need to know and do, and they control you, just like Big Brother likes to do. Yeah, it might have been 24 hours since he'd eaten. It might be 36. He still did not know, probably never would know, whether it had been morning or evening when they arrested him. You know, he just focused and dragged there. If you made unexpected movements, they yelled at you from the telescreen. Smith, yelled the voice from the telescreen. 6079 Smith W. Hands out of the pockets in your hands out of pockets in the cells. So they are focused. They are watching you. They don't want you doing anything. Okay, hands in pocket, getting something, whatever. They want you in a certain way. And we meet a couple other individuals here. Even on 227, this is kind of maybe more for comedic / gross out factor. This woman, overweight, vulgar woman, he sat next to her. You know, she leant forward and she vomited copiously on the floor. So she's just puking all over and just gross. And I can't keep down any of this stuff. I'm just getting sick. And, you know, just the beating and just, you know, it's just real rough. And Winston, for one split second, who does he think this woman possibly could be? His mom. We never know what happened to his mom. I don't think it's his mom, and I don't think he really thinks it is. But for a split second, oh, I wonder. You know, that's probably a really, really dark thought really quickly that he had. Middle of 228 is the first time that we see, we hear about a room 101, which he did not understand. Go ahead and underline that and circle that. That's going to be very relevant. That's something that, as we see in a little bit with, I believe it's Amplefirth, 101 is pretty significant. And we still don't know why. We being Winston and us. We don't know why. But that's something that will have greater clarity down the road. As it goes down to the bottom, he thinks about Julia. He hardly thought of Julia. He could not fix his mind on her. He loved her and would not betray her, but that was only a fact. Known as he knew the rules of arithmetic, he felt no love for her. He hardly even wondered what was happening to her. He thought oftener of O'Brien with a flickering hope. O'Brien must know that he had been arrested. The Brotherhood, he had said, never tried to save its members. But there was the razor blade. They could send a razor blade, meaning off yourself. Kill yourself. They'll never come and a prison break and take you out, because that could, jeopardize a lot more of the Brotherhood's numbers and so on. So really, if you're caught, it's pretty much, you're dead. You might have seen spies in World War II, Vietnam and so on. If, they might take a cyanide pill instead of being caught. You've seen this before? In Captain America, right after he gets transformed, I just watched this, so that's why it's relevant. He grabs that Nazi and the guy breaks off a false tooth. Those of you that have seen it. And he bites down on it and he kills himself, instead of being arrested and giving up vital information and interrogation and all of that. But so that's what the Brotherhood does to the people that get caught. Page 230, we meet a poet named Ampleforth. First time we meet him, last time we meet him. Not very relevant to the overall scope, other than this exchange. It's pretty integral. Talking to Winston. Smith, you too? What are you in for? To tell you the truth? He sat awkwardly on the bench opposite Winston. There is only one offense, is there not? And have you committed it? Committed it? Apparently I have. Think about that. Apparently I have. He didn't say yes I did or no I didn't. Because does that even matter whether he did it or not? No. Big brother says you did it, and apparently I have. Apparently I have. And that's a really telling statement, okay? In setting up the whole, the whole structure of the novel. Apparently I have. Whatever Big Brother said I did, I have no defense for. There is nothing that I could do or say to if they said it, I did it. So apparently. What a great phrasing. Apparently I have. Well, what are you here for? Well, we were producing a definitive edition of the poems of Kipling. You guys heard of Kipling? Anybody know what he wrote? Jungle Book. Very good. I allowed the word God to remain at the end of a line. I could not help it. It was impossible to change the line. The rhyme was rod. Do you realize that there are only 12 rhymes to rod in the entire language? For days I had racked my brain. There was no other rhyme. And so for the literary merit, I left in God. I didn't leave in God to prove a point and stick it to Big Brother and promote religion. It rhymed. And it was the only one that worked. I think this is one of the only real mentions of religion in the book. Right? And how does Big Brother handle any mention of religion? The other that I can think of is the presence of the church that was in the picture. Well, what happened to that church? Do you recall? Well, what happened to it first, before the museum? It was bombed out. And now it's a museum for Big Brother propaganda, right? And now we had this guy mentioning God, leaving it in. Even literary-wise, it's got to be there. Otherwise, it doesn't make sense and it doesn't rhyme. How can a poem not rhyme? In this particular instance. But that wasn't, you mentioned God. No, we don't mention God. Because why focus on that when you can focus on me, Big Brother? Okay, they don't want your attention diverted. Whether it's religion, whether it's love and lust and passion and all that. They want all of your attention focused on the party. That's the way they control you. Remember when we saw the superpowers? Okay, in the book in 2.9, they said the war was a way to keep people in check. To keep the people that are in charge, and keep everybody else below them. So very important. 232, Ampleforth. With a brief movement of the hand, a guard walked in, said room 101. Ampleforth, marched clumsily out. And who walks in? Parsons. Remember Parsons? Okay, he was his next door neighbor. He had the kids that he was very proud of. Parsons is a big time proponent of Big Brother. But he got caught. Who caught him? His kids. Was he angry? No, I'm proud of them. They did a great job. They did what they were supposed to. This guy is... By today's standards, we'd probably call him a moron or an idiot or you're crazy. But by standards of here, he's a party member. He swallowed it. You might have heard of the cliche, hook, line, and sinker. Remember with the chocolate rations? After they announced that? And Winston's like, that's ridiculous. But Syme, who was very, very too intelligent, that was eventually going to vanish, Syme actually, they said, swallowed it. He bought it. Here, not O'Brien, Parsons is so into the party that they did their job. Good job. They got me for thought crime. Well, are you guilty? Of course I'm guilty, cried Parsons. You don't think the party would arrest an innocent man, do you? Think about that. I guess I'm guilty. It's the same as what we said previously on that other page. The party wouldn't arrest innocent people, would they? Well, we know the answer to this, right? As an outside observer. But for a party member to fully, wholeheartedly believe that, and you're in there for something like that, that's just astounding. He said, in my sleep, they got me talking in my sleep, subconsciously. And that's how they caught me, and so on. It's my little daughter. Page 236. The main action. Room 101 is mentioned. This has to be at least the third time. First time he didn't understand it. Second time Ampleforth goes away. Somebody comes in and he mentions the skull-faced man. The door opened with a small gesture. The officer indicated the skull-faced man. Room 101. There was a gasp and a flurry at Winston's side. The man had actually flung himself on his knees on the floor with his hands clasped together. Comrade, officer, you don't have to take me to that place. Haven't I told you everything already? What else is it you want to know? There's nothing I wouldn't confess. Nothing. Just tell me what it is and I'll confess it straight off. Write it down and I'll sign it. Anything. Not room 101. Room 101, said the officer. The man's face, already very pale, turned a color Winston would not have believed possible. It was definitely, unmistakably a shade of green. Do anything to me. You've been starving me for weeks. Finish it off and let me die. Shoot me. Hang me. Sentence me to 25 years. Is there somebody else you want me to give away? Just say who it is and I'll tell you anything you want. I don't care who it is or what you do to them. Here's where it's like, wow. I've got a wife and 3 children. The biggest of them is 6 years old, kindergarten. You can take the whole lot of them and cut their throats in front of my eyes, and I'll stand by and watch it, but not room 101. Room 101. Okay, so we don't know what's in room 101, but is it a good thing or bad? Bad. Winston knows nothing about room 101 except what he hears this guy. This guy says, take my 3 kids, all toddlers, and you can slit their throats, and my wife, in front of me. Please don't make me go to a room. In movies and stuff, if people are having a standoff, usually it's, take me, let them go, right? Let them go, but protect me, save me, and so on. Here it's completely the opposite. Look at this. This man wants his family killed. In movies and TV, when people are at gunpoint, it's a standoff. You usually say, no, let my family go. Take me. Do whatever you want to me, but let them go. Right? You've seen this before. But here it's, save me, kill them. Here, let me get out of the way so you can slit their throats, and I'll just stand by and watch. Okay, dead? Good? Good, no room 1. Okay, I can go? Great. Okay? That doesn't seem right. So something is rough in room 101. And during this time, Winston has even struggled with even thinking about Julia. He doesn't think about her anymore. He doesn't. He struggles. Where's it at? It's back on 228. He hardly thought of Julia. He could not fix his mind on her. He loved her and would not betray her. But that was only a fact, known as he knew the rules of arithmetic. He felt no love for her. And he hardly even wondered what was happening to her. He thought oftener of O'Brien with a flickering hope. O'Brien must know that he had been arrested. The Brotherhood, he had said, never tried to save its members, but there was the razor blade. They would send the razor blade if they could. Meaning, if you're caught, it's like in the movies when a spy is caught, you know this is a dangerous mission. If you're caught, what's the line? We will disavow all knowledge of your existence. They say something like that, right? It's on the Mission Impossibles, things like that. Same type of thing. But they're not going to send somebody to break you out. They might send a razor blade for you to do what with? Shave, right? No, slit your wrist. Slit your throat if you can do that. I guess you can nick the artery over there. Okay? So very interesting to see where Winston's mindset is. He won't betray her, but he isn't thinking about her, which is strange. Given time, he will think about her, but initially, he's more concerned about O'Brien, about what's going to happen in the foreseeable future. So that takes us to 238, the last 2 pages. The boots were approaching. The door opened. O'Brien came in. Winston started to his feet. The shock of the sight had driven all caution out of him. For the first time in many years, he forgot the presence of the telescreen. "They've got you too!" he cried. "They got me a long time ago," said O'Brien, with a mild, almost regretful irony. He stepped aside. From behind him there emerged a broad-chested guard with a long black truncheon in his hand. "You knew this, Winston. Don't deceive yourself. You did know it. You have always known it." Yes, he saw now. He had always known it. So O'Brien, good guy, bad guy. Winston thinks, "Oh man, they got you too?" Winston, "They got me a long time ago." Gets out of the way so the big strong guy can come in and start beating on Winston. And the torture and the agony is going to start. Okay? The next 3-4 scenes up until the end deals with O'Brien and Winston. As an actor and as somebody who would go and see a play, these would be the most interesting scenes. We are going to see Winston holding out hope, holding out those principles. We're going to see O'Brien trying to break him and torture him and get him down. Winston holding on to that betrayal, holding on. O'Brien going after him, talking about the policy. Winston getting all of these questions, all these questions about O'Brien and about brotherhood and the Bible and all these things, and O'Brien answering or not answering, just back and forth. If you start reading and you're into the book, just finish it. You will enjoy the ending that much more if you can keep that continuity going. Part 3, Chapter 2. Okay, Winston was beaten at the very end of Chapter 1. We see, O'Brien as a member of the inner party, which we already knew he was a member, but he is not a traitor to the party. He is fully behind the party, which is not really good news for our protagonist, Winston. 240 and 241. I'm just going to kind of skip around on these pages, so stay with me. The confessions, the beatings were long. There was some time off, then there'd be more beatings. And Winston would go with a different game plan for each beating. The confession was merely a formality, meaning you confess, but it wouldn't stop. Okay, people when they're tortured, they tend to, whether they break and tell the truth or lie, they'll say whatever to make the pain stop, to make the torture stop. Remember, the goal of that is to survive and live. Okay, and that's where Winston said that the only way we can win is when we don't have that as our goal, but our goal is to remain human. Okay, so that's ultimately what he needs to do, and in order to hold on to his love for Julia and not to betray her and so on. Down on 240, he talks that there were times when he'd roll around the floor and trying to dodge all the kicks. There are other times when they would beat him and they could not force himself, and he tried to black out, but he couldn't. There are other times when he started out with the resolve of confessing. I'm going to confess, but not yet. I can take more. So he had a different mindset going into each one. Okay, even though the end was always going to be the same, just beaten to a pulp. Okay, they're breaking him down and breaking him down physically and it looks like mentally as well. Eventually the beatings grew less frequent. If you look on 241, the real weapon ultimately was the physical stuff kind of stopped for the most part. I mean, I would still be threatened with that, but it was the questioning. Long interrogations of questioning. Imagine you've seen in the movies where somebody is not given water, and they sit in a dark room with a really hot light right under, kind of like those heat lamps on your fries that don't seem to work that great sometimes, or at least my fries tend to be cold. Those of you that work at McDonald's, talking to you. And it seems like, you know how they scrape the last of the fries? The last that's been sitting there? Those are the ones I always get. So the mom with the whiny kids behind me, they get the fresh batch that they just drop in, and you just see them shoot all that salt. Oh, that's good. That's good. Yeah. Yeah, don't stand in line with me. If you stand in line with me, stand behind me and you'll get the best fries. 242, during the questioning, Winston, his mind is still working. His sole concern was to find out what they wanted him to confess and then quickly confess it. He confessed to assassinations of eminent party members, the distribution of seditious pamphlets, embezzlement of public funds, sale of military secrets, sabotage of every kind. He said that he was a religious believer. He was an admirer of capitalism. He was a sexual pervert. He confessed he murdered his wife, which he's pretty sure that he knew that the questioners knew that his wife was still alive. But he still was trying to figure out what is this game that they want and then head them off at the pass and confess to it. And so he's trying to stay with it mentally as much as he can. The emergence of O'Brien, 243 and 44 and 45, and really from here on out, he's the one who's in charge of these interrogations ultimately, okay, and the tortures. Winston's feelings about O'Brien go up and down, up and down. At one point, we're talking today, at one point he loves O'Brien. Huh? Seriously? But you got to think about the mindset that Winston's in, and we'll get there in a little bit. The broken, the way that he's broken down. Bottom of 244. Well, top, I guess, and then bottom. But he says, "Don't worry, Winston. You are in my keeping. For 7 years I have watched over you. Now the turning point has come. I shall save you. I shall make you perfect. I told you that if we met again, it would be here." "Yes," said Winston. Without any warning, except a slight movement of O'Brien's hand, a wave of pain flooded him. There's a bunch of dials, little things. I mean, you've seen this in movies as well. Just you start twisting it, and you see the needle go up. And as it goes up, it's more electricity or more pain in this instant, and going up to 100 and so on. And so just a little twist of the hand, and it'll zap him, give him a lot of pain. A lot of pain. And that happened, as we see throughout here, quite a bit. O'Brien on 245, before he really gets going, he goes, you can see that the numbers on this dial run up to 100. What you just experienced was 40, and that blew Winston's mind. Think about that. If I tortured you guys all, and you're screaming and crying, and then I said, this dial goes to 100. That was at 40%. Keep that in mind as I ask you questions, because we can go a lot longer and a lot harder and a lot more painful. So that is in your mind now. Okay, and that gives you one more thing to be worried about and scared of. I'm taking trouble with you, Winston, because you are worth trouble. You know perfectly well what is the matter with you. You have known it for years, though you have fought against the knowledge. Here it is. You are mentally deranged. You suffer from a defective memory. You are unable to remember real events, and you persuade yourself that you remember other events which never happened. Fortunately, good for you. It's curable. I'm going to cure you. So he's here because he's insane. It's not because he slept with Julia and all these other little things, okay? It is, you have a deranged mind, Winston, and we need to fix you. We need to correct you. And so that's the ultimate goal that we see O'Brien undertake here. So to test him, at this moment, 246, at this moment, which power is Oceania at war with? Well, when I was arrested, Oceania was at war with Eurasia. Excuse me, I misread. Oceania was at war with East Asia. With East Asia. Good. And Oceania has always been at war with East Asia, has it not? Winston drew in a breath, opened his mouth to speak, and then did not. Because what's Winston going to say? Not technically, because I remember, a week ago it was the other, and then 4 years ago it was what it is right now. But you see, he paused for a moment. You can almost imagine if O'Brien's straight out from me, talking to me, and I'm Winston, like, you look over at the dial, don't you? You're like, I I know what's going to happen if I tell him what what I'm thinking. So I'm going to try to say what he wants me to say. But that doesn't work with O'Brien. That's not a way to cure him. Okay? And it's funny because O'Brien actually notices the truth. Please, Winston, your truth. Tell me what you think you remember. I remember that only a week ago before I was arrested, we were at war with East Asia. He stopped him with a movement of the hand. Another example. Some years ago, you had a very serious delusion. Indeed, you believed that 3 men, 3 one-time party members, do you remember this? Okay. You believed that you had seen unmistakable documentary evidence proving that their confessions were false. There was a certain photograph about which you had a hallucination. You believed that you had actually held it in your hand. It was a photograph, something like this. And he has a photograph in his hand. And Winston sees it for just a split second. And he pulls it away, but he recognized that picture. It exists. I knew it exists. I knew it exists. 247. It exists. No. He stepped across the room, lifted up the grating on the memory hole, put it in. Ashes. Not even identifiable ashes, dust. It does not exist. It never existed. But it did. It does exist. It's in my memory. I remember it. You remember it. I do not remember it. Winston's quiet. Double think. O'Brien is so good at it that and Winston says he doesn't know for sure if O'Brien really did forget it, that he just did it, because it doesn't exist anymore. It's completely gone. There's no proof that it ever existed. Winston, you're a fool. It never existed. But Winston has just seen it again. But he's just reiterating that whole thing about double think and the significance and importance of it. O'Brien was looking down at him speculatively. More than ever, he had the air of a teacher taking pains with a wayward but promising child. So Winston's strapped down. He's been tortured. All these things. And you can imagine O'Brien just looking down at him, addressing him, trying to make the troubled student learn and understand what the teacher's trying to get him to understand. You are insane, student. I'm here to help you and correct it. Okay? I'm here to cure you. 248, 249. This is where it starts to get really interesting, and we see Winston start to falter and flounder a little bit. Because they compare the memories to records. Bottom of 248. In memory. Oh, that's where they were. Okay, well, very well then. Well, we, the party, control all records, and we control all memories. Then we control the past, do we not? But how can you stop people remembering things? How can you control memory? You can't control. You have not controlled mine. O'Brien's manner grew stern again. He laid his hand on the dial. Oh, on the contrary, you have not controlled it. That is what has brought you here. You are here because you have failed in humility and self-discipline. Skip down a bit. You believe that reality is something objective, external, existing in its own right, blah, blah. But I tell you, Winston, that reality is not external. Reality exists in the human mind and nowhere else. Whatever the party holds to be truth is truth. It is impossible to see reality except by looking through the eyes of the party. That is the fact that you have got to relearn, Winston. It's not learn. Relearn, Winston. It needs an act of self-destruction, an effort of the will. You must humble yourself before you can become sane. Have you heard this phrase before in a different way? You must be broken down in order to be rebuilt. Okay? I mean, that's when you go into the military with the boot camps and they're just drilling you. And they're trying to make you not think for yourself except to do what we tell you to do. You know, in certain situations and such. They're trying to break you down and reteach you. Relearn you. I know it sounds weird to say. And that's what he needs to do with Winston. Do you remember writing in your diary, and we talked about this, that freedom is the freedom to say 2 plus 2 makes 4? Yes. O'Brien held up his left hand. It's back towards Winston, with the thumb hidden and the 4 fingers extended. How many fingers am I holding up, Winston? 4? And if the party says that it is not 4 but 5, then how many? 4. The word ended in a gasp of pain. So you can imagine O'Brien just sitting there like this, one hand on the dial, like this. 4, zzz, and he's getting drilled. He's getting zapped. Have you heard of this, electric shock therapy, before? Okay. If you've seen the movie A Beautiful Mind with Russell Crowe, it was the best, I think it won Best Picture in 2001, 2002. He deals with, he has multiple schizophrenia. He sees different things, different people. He sees things that aren't there. And he was committed to himself that, he got electric shock therapy, and he forced himself through will to suppress all of those. And he was a Nobel Prize winner, and it's a good movie, a good story. But they had electric shock therapy in that as well. 250. How many fingers, Winston? 4. The needle went up to 60. How many fingers, Winston? 4. 4. What else can I say? 4. Okay? Because if he says 5, he doesn't really mean it. We see that down here. How many fingers, Winston? 4. Stop it, stop it. How can you go on? 4, 4. How many fingers, Winston? 5. 5. 5. No, Winston. That is no use. You're lying to me. You still think there are 4. How many fingers, please? 4. 5. 4. Anything you like, only stop it. Stop the pain. Calm down. He's brought back down from all the pain. Things calm down. 251. Let's try this again. How many fingers? 4. I suppose there are 4. I would see 5 if I could. I'm trying to see 5. Which do you wish? To persuade me that you see 5? Or really to see them? Really to see them. Again, perhaps the needle was 80 or 90. So it's getting harder and harder and harder. 252. How many fingers am I holding up, Winston? I don't know. I don't know. You will kill me if you do that again. 4, 5, 6. In all honesty, I don't know. Look at O'Brien's response. Better. Up until then, he was defiant, saying 4. He was saying 5 just to stop the pain. So he was giving it a variable, 4 or 5, 4 or 5. But here he goes, I don't know what it is. I don't know. What is it? It's going to be what... I don't know what that is anymore. And so in a way, he's breaking him down. And this is going to come back again. That's why I paid such attention to it when he wrote it in his diary way back in, part 1. Okay? So it's very... this is one of the first breaking moments that we see Winston go through. And then it goes because the pain stops. Okay? And right in the middle of that, he goes, he had never loved him so deeply as this moment, and not merely because he had stopped the pain. The old feeling that at bottom it did not matter whether O'Brien was a friend or an enemy had come back. O'Brien was a person who could be talked to. I don't know. If you're being tortured, you're going to have that same kind of feeling? I guess they keep talking about needles and injections. He could be very much being drugged and having these euphoric thoughts and feelings and, pain relief and all of these different mindsets. So it could be very difficult. Bottom, and why do you imagine that we bring people to this place? To make them confess. No, that's not the reason. Try again. To punish them. No! To cure you. To make you sane. We do not merely destroy our enemies, we change them. Do you understand? And here's where he talks about in the next couple pages about what they are going to do to you. They talk about the history that in the past, we've learned, and this in the next chapter I think he mentions as well. They've learned from the past. You guys have heard of the Spanish Inquisition, all these other great purges that have gone on throughout history. Okay? If you don't believe in our faith, we will burn you at the stake. Okay, well, fine, they died. But they died still being a heretic. They died still believing their beliefs. And so they died becoming a martyr for the rest of their people. So in essence, they've won. They didn't betray their cause or their belief. Okay? Do you understand this philosophy so far? That's what we're not doing as a party member. We find the people who believe that, and we bring you here, and we break you, and ultimately the term cure. We cure you. We build you back up. We empty you out and fill you back up, and then we release you. Imagine if they were to capture Goldstein and kill him. He would be even bigger of a martyr. But what if they got Goldstein, broke him down, and filled him up and made him the best party member possible, and then released him back amongst his people? Do you see how much more powerful of a message that is for the party? You've taken their number one person and turned him into a number one party member and sent him back out. And he says throughout here, you'll be plucked from the stream of history. We'll kill you, you'll die eventually, but not until you've served your purpose, and that is go back out and preach the word of Big Brother. We will not make martyrs. That's why we must break you before we ultimately kill you. You cannot hold on to any of these thoughts, or else Big Brother doesn't win, and that's unacceptable. Okay, so that's the mindset of O'Brien that you must remember. They do not want to make martyrs. Page 256, Winston holds on to hope, and O'Brien goes, "Do not imagine that you will save yourself, Winston. However completely you surrender to us, no one who has once gone astray is ever spared. And even if we choose to let you live out the natural term of your life, still, you would never escape from us. What happens to you here is forever. Understand that in advance. We shall crush you down to the point from which there is no coming back." The bottom of that, "Never again will you be capable of love or friendship or joy of living or laughter or curiosity or courage or integrity. You will be hollow." Man, who wants to live if that happens to you? But if that's your goal, is to stay alive, that might be something that you are acceptable to or accepting of. 259. The main torture of this scene has ended. He's calming down a little bit. O'Brien says at the top of 259, "I enjoy talking to you. Your mind appeals to me. It resembles my own mind, except that you happen to be insane. Before we bring this session to an end, you can ask me a few questions if you choose." So here's a little Q&A so Winston can finally get some closure with regards to certain things. Mainly, Julia. What's happened to Julia? Where is she? What have you done with Julia? She betrayed you, Winston. Immediately, unreservedly, blah, blah. All her rebelliousness, her deceit, her folly, her dirty-mindedness, everything has been burned out of her. It was a perfect conversion, a textbook case. Next question. Does Big Brother exist? Think that's a good question? Does Big Brother exist? Does he exist in the same way that I, Winston, exist? Oh, Winston. Look at this response. Oh, Winston. You don't exist. Winston's trying to find out if Big Brother exists, like me. Winston, you don't even exist. Of course he exists. You are the one who doesn't exist. You're so low, you cease to exist. We plucked you out. You're nobody. So once again, just needling him. Will Big Brother ever die? Of course not. How could he die? Next question. Does the Brotherhood exist? That's a great question that, don't you want to know? He was portraying that he was a member of the Brotherhood, but now you're like, does the Brotherhood exist? That, Winston, you will never know. You will never know. If we choose to set you free when we have finished with you, and if you live to be 90 years old still, you will never learn whether the answer to that question is yes or no. How many of you think that the Brotherhood does not exist? You just think that it was totally created by the party. The rest of you think it exists. Well, my goodness, there was a book, wasn't there? Well, who do you think wrote the book? Who says that he wrote the book? O'Brien. Does that mean that there isn't a rebellion out there to some degree? There very well could be. But this, you see how easy it is for the party to control people and blame all the mistakes on Goldstein or the enemies that they're at war with? It's a lot harder to keep everybody happy and following orders if there isn't somebody to direct all of that hatred towards. And his last question, the one that I think we all are curious about, what is in room 101? The expression on O'Brien's face did not change. He answered dryly, "You know what is in room 101, Winston. Everyone knows what is in room 101. I don't know what's in room 101. I wouldn't ask you if I don't know. All he knows about room 101, the main vision that keeps popping in his head anytime he hears room 101, is that skull-faced man from the end of 3.1 that says, kill my wife, slit my kids' throats in front of me, just don't make me go. And so Winston is fearful of what is room 101 because of what he's seen or witnessed through other people. But he doesn't know. But O'Brien's like, trust me, you know. You know what's in room 101.